Hi everyone and welcome to another anti-season 2 guide for Tekken 8. This is going to be going over version 2.01, the last patch that was made for the game, the changes to characters, and what you should be doing and paying attention to from the last patch. We're going to be skipping over looking at characters that didn't really get anything that are going to affect how you play against them, like Elisa. This is purely going to be an anti-character guide for the last patch. If you want a full overview on the changes in Season 2 and how to deal with them, I have two anti-Season 2 guides that will be linked in the description down below. So, the first character that we're going to start with is Azucena. Alright, so here we are with Azucena, and before we get into this, I have to give a big shout out and thank you to Lisetto, who is a member of our community, for basically putting together all of the information I'm going to be talking about today before I even had a chance to do it. Really helped in the process of this video, so I have to give a big thank you to her. So, the main thing with Azucena that's changed is running 3-2. Now, if you looked at my anti-season 2 video on Azucena, most of Azucena's section revolved around this move and there basically being no counterplay to the stance transition, because when she's +5, you can't jab interrupt her, you can't sidestep stuff like the 2, and so you're regulated to only using Power Crush, but Azucena has a pretty decent option to be able to deal with Power Crush in 3-1. And even on normal hit here, if she does 3, goes in the back turn at +2, and then she has her back turn 1, of course, which is now +2 on block. So this entire situation was kind of unwinnable, especially if your back was to the wall, because of just how powerful this stance mix-up was. Now she is only +3 instead of +5. The option that this opens up for you when dealing with the stance mix-up is that you now have access to jab and down jab after this. Power Crush is still going to win and lose against the same situations, but now her fastest move when she's in the stance is 13 frames. So if you try jabbing or down jabbing her in this stance, then if she does the 1, then it'll trade with jab. If you do the down jab, it'll be every option that she has, except for the new options that she got in stance, like the orbital up forward 4. So you still have to take a bit of a risk when doing the down jab. However, you have more options now. You have an option that covers more of Azucena's options, particularly being the low, something that hits the lows, the mids, and the highs. She only has a couple of options in the stance to be able to stop that, and that means that dealing with the stance mix-up pressure is a lot more manageable and a lot more in line with every other character in the game. Now, that said, Azucena, of course, has her auto parries, which means that jab and down jab aren't actually going to be perfect solutions to this stance. If you do jab, she, of course, avoids and then has a follow-up in heat, and then if you do low jab, she, of course, has an auto low parry. So if she just sits in stance here and waits for your jab or down jab, then she is going to be able to punish you, and it's going to be even harder in heat. However, if Azucena is standing there in stance and not doing anything and waiting for that all low parry to come out, then you can, of course, hit with a mid like a down forward 2 and launch her. Outside of that, though, even when not in heat, Azucena, of course, doesn't have to go in the stance. But you, in order to be able to option select this, do have to commit to your attack. And if Azucena doesn't go in here, she can, of course, sidestep your jab and down jab because she's +2, and then just launch you. So Azucena still has plenty of options to be able to deal with this. It's still one of the best plus on block stance mix-up tools in the entire game. It's probably second only to Leroy sidestep 3+4, which we'll talk about in a second. And because of that, you have to be a little bit more on your guard against a good Azucena player. Mainly what this is doing is it's increasing the interaction and the mind games between you and your opponent when you're playing against Azucena. A bad Azucena player is just going to do running 3-2, go in the stance every time, and if they are a bad Azucena player, then you have an option to be able to cleanly beat anything that they do, which is jab or down jab. If they just do running 3-2, feel like they can go in the stance for free and do a free stance mix-up, they mash a button every single time that they do this, then you have a very solid and easy option to be able to shut down all of their pressure. However, if you're playing against an actual good Azucena player that understands how to utilize this move well, this is still an extremely scary and oppressive move because Azucena's options are so plentiful and so safe for her, whereas for you as the defender, when you're choosing to do these options like down jab, the reward you're getting out of it really is stopping his stance pressure and taking back your turn, but the risk is that you're getting launched. So you have a lot that you have to think about here. You have a lot of options available. You have power crush to beat everything except for the lows. You have down jab to beat everything except if she's standing still, or she sidesteps you, or she does the orbital. You could do something like down forward 1 to try mid-checking her if you think that she's going to maybe sidestep in a direction where you're down forward 1 tracks, or you think she's going to do something out of stance that's not necessarily just the 1 or the 2. And so these are the kind of things that you have to think about. One other thing as well to point out, because this is +3, is that this will actually trade with a down forward 1, which on paper doesn't seem like the best trade in the world. But if you're getting her out of this situation where she's mixing you for free, then it is a pretty, it's a bad situation to be in. Then if you get hit and just have to deal with the mix-up. As you can see, this is 0 on trade, right? So even though it's not a huge win, it's still allowing you to get out of that pressure, which is what we really are looking for. You also have sidestep left, by the way, to be able to sidestep this low now afterwards. So again, really what this is changing, if you aren't playing against some of the best Azucena players in the world, this is going to stop them from being able to mindlessly throw out their offense, and it's going to force Azucena players to actually play the character well. If the Azucena players play the character well, this change isn't really going to affect too much. They're just going to have to play mind games more. They're going to have to think a little bit harder. But if you're playing against someone who really is solid with Azucena, is strong with the character, then it doesn't matter. This stance mix-up is still going to be scary. You're still going to be putting yourself at a big risk as the defender, and sometimes it's going to be better to not do down jab and not do power crush, but just wait it out and see what they do. I think this is a good change because it just adds to more interaction between the attacker and defender, but it still fits in Azucena's playstyle, which is just a big rush down character, and she still has the best stance mix-up in the game. Like, this move is still absurd, despite what some Azucena players will tell you. All right, the other change that Azucena got to defense is the change to her down 1. So down 1 with Azucena is a really strong tool because it allows her to be able to do while rising 1 afterwards and frame trap you if you try down jabbing or something. She has another move as well that she got that does this, which is this move. But the problem with down 1 before is that it had so little pushback that there was nothing you could really do about this mix-up. Like, you can't sidestep it because it's just the move tracks so much. You can power crush through, but then you're at risk of getting hit by this on counter hit, which just is no good. So it was a really tough situation to deal with, and it was such an easy and free move to throw out in neutral. And they nerfed this so that there's more pushback. So now, if you get a clean backdash, you can see you can actually backdash out of this sometimes and then launch Punisher for this. So depending on the range, this isn't free for her to do anymore. You have to have a well-timed backdash, and it depends on range as well. From what I can tell, she's like right in your face, so she's doing this as an Oki setup. It's still the same as before where you can't really backdash, although sometimes you can. So maybe it's character dependent. Maybe it's just me being stupid. I'm not sure, but it's been a little bit inconsistent for me doing this, but you can see there a lot of the time you can backdash out of this if she's just doing this all the time and then launch her. So that's something to look out for if an Azucena keeps forcing the situation, especially at longer range, then backdash out of it and launch it. This is going to be your best bet. Sidestep left is also a pretty decent option for this too. So sidestep left and duck can be another option that you can do here. It's giving you multiple ways to be able to now deal with the situation. But you can see, again, that even sidestep left and duck isn't that consistent. It might be angle dependent. I'm not sure. It's just Tekken 8 being Tekken 8. So if you want to play it safe, just backdash. It accomplishes basically the same thing. That's what I've been doing. All right, moving on to Bryan. So Bryan actually got a stealth nerf to back 1+2 that we'll talk about now. The tracking on it got reduced. So if you tried sidestepping Bryan to the left before the last patch, then the first hit you could avoid, but then the second hit could clip you. If you tried sidestepping to the right, then both hits would be able to track to the right. This has been stealth nerf, so now it... Great. Now you can step it very cleanly to both directions. This wasn't in the patch notes for some reason. I couldn't tell you why, but if you look back at my Season 2 video, I'm pretty sure in the video there's a demonstration of how well this tracked before. That's been nerfed, so that's big. The other thing that got nerfed about this move too is the frames on it. So this has gone from +7 to +4 and forces Bryan into crouch. So there are a couple things you can do. Like you can see you can still crouch cancel out of it and then do the back 1 +2. But because this is only +4 instead of +7 and it forces Bryan to always go into a crouching state, it means that really anything that Bryan does here can be beat with Power Crush. Now, the idea behind this move now, of course, is that you do this and then you try frame trapping with like the While Rising 3 or something. You can also do this and then do the While Rising 4 to be safe if you don't want the counter hit and just keep up the pressure or something. And then when you've locked the opponent down with that by them being scared of those tools, and then you can do something like this, right? You can like do this and then crouch cancel and then hatchet kick or something like that. Now, the thing is, though, again, all of the options that Bryan does out of crouch, you can just beat with Power Crush, a very common theme of Season 2. So even if I do this, and let's say I do the frame trap tool, which is the knee, there you go. Power Crush beats it, right? So what Bryan has to do now in order to be able to counter that is, of course, the from crouch low. The from crouch low being what it does on counter hit, which I don't even know if this is going to work. It does. That's the intention. That's the use of the move now. That's what you're supposed to do. But really, this isn't doing a whole lot for Bryan, because in order for him to actually do this, he has to be in heat. Because both of these moves use Snake Eyes. So if he does this and then does this, he's just used all of his heat to do that sequence. So a Bryan player is never going to do this. Instead, what they're probably going to do, if you're doing Power Crush, is just do this and then block. And that means if you're showing your intention to use Power Crush, even though Bryan is +4, he loses his turn by using either his movement or just trying to block for the Power Crush. So that's what you gotta keep in mind here. Unless Bryan is in heat, then after this move, Bryan really has nothing he can do afterwards despite the plus strengths. He's just really scary and big, but this move kind of does nothing and wastes his resources. Now, the dynamic here that you have to be careful of is that you might start getting complicit with Bryan doing this and then doing nothing and saying, "Ooh, I'm going to take my turn. Let me do a low." And then Bryan does While Rising 3 and then counter hit launches you. So this is a dynamic you have to keep in mind. After Bryan does this, the only low that he can do from crouch requires heat. He has to be in heat. He doesn't just have to have a resource because he won't have access to that. He has to be in heat, which means when he's outside of heat, if he's pressing any button afterward, you just Power Crush, boom, you win. If you heat burst him, you can do it safely unless he sidesteps, boom, you win the interaction. Simple as that. And if he's not in heat, then you've done that and he's lost his resource. So that's a huge win for you. Even if it just gets blocked and you do nothing, him losing his resource, 2 thumbs up. That's great for you. That's what you want. You don't want him to be in this. You want him to be out of this as much as possible. But then if you got a good Bryan player, he's going to do this. He's just going to block, wait for you to do your Power Crush or something to beat his attacks, and then punish you and then go back on the offense. So you have to be careful of that. But then if the Bryan player is relinquishing his turn to you because he's waiting for the Power Crush, then you can start making your moves. But then if you start doing that, if you start taking your turn, then there's While Rising 3, the counter hit launch you. So that's sort of the RPS element that's going on with this move now. Those are the things you have to think about when you block this. What is the Bryan player going to do? What is he waiting for? And how can I take advantage of that? And of course, you as the defender don't have to do anything here. After you block this move, Bryan can't do a low unless he crouch cancels into a hatchet kick or something, and that takes an eternity for him to do, so you can just wait, sit there and wait. Alright, so when I record the Devil Jin section of this video, apparently I accidentally muted my mic for the entire section, so I'm recording this afterwards while I'm trying to edit the video. So no webcam because I'm too lazy to put up my green screen right now. So, Devil Jin got 3 nerfs. The first and biggest one is going to be off his down forward 1-2. This no longer puts the opponent face down, head towards anymore. Now they're face up, feet towards. The main thing that this is going to change is at very specific angles, like at the wall, like here, Devil Jin isn't going to get a guaranteed like back 4 or anything anymore. But it's still going the wall splat and all of that, so that's something you still have to look out for. He also still gets Oki off of Morning Crow at mid-screen, but there's a little bit that you can do about it. So I have the opponent set to wake up here. I'm going to do this and then go into Morning Crow and do one of my attacks. I can do the L one as well. So I have to wait a little bit when I do this. But as long as I wait for long enough, I can still force the Morning Crow mix even from all the way back here. And of course, if you wake up, there's not a lot that you can really do to stop it. Even if I tech roll here, whatever one that I'm supposed to do for this, as long as I time this right, you can see that I can still even get the one to connect. And so there are a couple of ways to beat this. One way is that you could just stay on the ground, but then Devil Jin, of course, has 3+4 if you stay on the ground. That gives him +11 and gives him Oki while he's in your face. So while it is a fine option, you can also do this afterwards, however you do that input. So while that is a fine option that is going to be able to beat stuff like the 1, for example, he obviously has ways to be able to counter it. The other thing you can do too is a mid-wake up kick, and if he tries going for this, you can float him off of that and then combo him. But again, if he does this attack, and he actually times it right, unlike me, then he does a full combo on you for doing wake up kick. So he can still force this mix up from full screen, even after this hits, even after the nerf. But you have other options now because your face up, feet towards. Wake up kick is a better option for you to do than it is if you're face down, head towards. So that's something to think about if he's doing this. Another thing that he can do as well, he can just do Morning Crow if I have the opponent here just wake up and then choose to do it empty, so not go for anything here, and then choose to do like a house sweep or something. So that's a tricky thing that he can also do, the mix up here with the Oki. And if you're not ready for it and you don't see that, then or you don't even know you can do that, then that can very easily catch you off guard and lead to a vortex situation. So just something to keep in mind, that the down forward 1 is still a really strong move. He still gets the Oki off it, but your main options for being able to beat the Morning Crow follow-up is wake up kick to float him, or just like staying on the ground and waiting for him to come in. Now, that said, after all of that, again, if he's going to try doing something after you wake up, then really all he can do is like this. Oh, sorry. If I actually wait the proper amount of time, he can do this, and it's +8, but he's a little bit more telegraphed, even though he's still plus. And from that point, he has to do something like this, in which case you can just stand up and launch him. So all things to think about there. The next thing is that the tracking on down back 1+2 is lower now. So before, if you tried sidestepping this to the left, then you would get clipped by it. That's been the case since the beginning. Now that's not the case. Now you can sidestep the down back 1+2 in either direction very cleanly. And also the second charge version of this is only +5 instead of +17. So you have a little bit more room to be able to continue to take your turn. Lastly, off of the down forward 1 here, Devil Jin can do something like, if I actually did this right, he can do something like this quick unblockable. This is now 0 instead of +5. So now after this hits, this is a quick little unblockable Devil Jin can do to try to end rounds. It's still quite good for that purpose because, of course, it's a very fast unblockable. But because it's 0, if this ends up hitting you, and because of how the neutral situation resets, you can see his jab will whiff if he tries jab checking you afterwards. This means that the neutral situation is just completely reset, and you can just take your turn and do what you like. Anyway, I'm going to have the Seth that was originally recording this video come back now, because that's all of Devil Jin. Alright, Feng's one and only change is that in heat back forward 3+4 has gone from plus 12 to plus 7 on block. I know that seems like a whole lot of nothing, because what's the difference between plus 12 and plus 7? Well, there's a big difference, actually. What it means is that you can down jab interrupt anything Feng does from back turn except for 1 plus 2. Any other move that Feng does here, if he does the 2, if he does the... yeah, down 3, sorry, that was down 4 for a second. These can be interrupted with down jab. Obviously, if he does this to go in the stance, then that can be interrupted with down jab. So it's just giving you more options to be able to deal with the stance mix-up pressure. Of course, if Feng does this, you still want to try sidestepping it right, because if you looked at my anti-season 2 video, when Feng does this, even on hit when he goes into stance here, you can still step guard a lot of the options he has, despite him being plus 8. So I still recommend sidestepping this if Feng's in heat and you see this coming out, but those are going to be your options. Now, interestingly enough, again, this is something that was pointed out by Lisetto. Thank you very much, Lisetto. There are some characters where down jab whiffs when Feng's doing a back turn down 3 in this situation. Those characters are Dragunov, Feng, great mirror match character, Jack 8, because he doesn't have a 10 frame down jab from crouch for some bizarre reason, King, Bears, because again, no 10 frame down jab, and Steve. So I don't know why that's the case, but it is. Now, what does this mean for the defender if you choose to continuously down jab here? Well, it means that Feng is able to do this, and then he gets a guaranteed follow-up afterwards, and this is only -3 on block. So what Feng can do here, this is actually pretty powerful. He can do this, go in the stance, and then do some sort of stance Oki. And off of this stance, if I can remember how to do this, yeah, I think that's how you do it. You can loop this Oki. So again, there's still interaction between the two players here. You're still taking a risk by down jabbing, but the reward that you get is you're not letting Feng mix these things up for free, right? That's the idea. Now, you as the defender do have one other option as well to be able to deal with this, and that is Heat Burst. Heat Burst will, of course, be everything here except for the low. If you don't have Heat Burst available, then you can still Power Crush, but you have to crouch cancel into Power Crush if you don't have one from crouching, and that requires a frame-perfect crouch cancel into whatever your Power Crush is, and because of the amount of block stun on this move, it's very difficult to get the timing for it. It's extremely awkward, but it is a frame-perfect crouch cancel into, in Feng's case, forward 1+2 here. So we'll see if I can get it real quick. There we go. So not a very practical thing because, again, frame perfect. It's going to be easy if you have a character like Lydia that has a Power Crush on back, because instead of having to sidestep and then press forward 1+2, instead you can just backdash it on the frame that you recover. You just hit back 1+2 or whatever your Power Crush is. Much easier than a character that has a Power Crush on a forward input. So not something I'd say is very practical, but if you have a character that can do a Power Crush from crouch, or you just feel a bit cheeky and want to learn this just because you have a Feng play at your locals that you hate or something, that's an option that you have. It works. All right, so big change to Heihachi and the Heihachi matchup. The new move that was given to him in Season 2, that feels like it was done by a Pixar animator that was fired after 1.5 months and sent to work on Shrek or something. This move now on block went from +8 to +6. And I know that doesn't look like a lot on paper, but in practice it's actually really good, because Heihachi's fastest move that he has out of this, 17 frame mid, right? So pretty much anything that Heihachi does afterwards, if he goes into stance, you can down jab him out of it. And that means that Heihachi, kind of like Azucena, is going to want to do while running 1+2 now and try sidestepping your down jab. So just to kind of demonstrate this, I have a Heihachi set to do this into the 1, and you can see even though the 1 is airborne, down jab just beats everything here. Now, the nice thing actually about this stance transition, as opposed to something like Azucena's, is that you can actually react to the stance transition and down jab Heihachi. So if you're a really solid player, then this stance mix-up basically doesn't exist anymore. However, if you're not that astute and you're not ready to look out for that, and this is probably what you'll be seeing a lot of Heihachi players do, just like we demonstrate with Azucena. If I could not do the Astroth kick, that'd be great. Heihachi can, of course, sidestep your down jab, and then, okay, great. Heihachi can, of course, sidestep your down jab, and then launching this game is a very consistent mess. So that's something to look out for. If you're a Heihachi player, then that's something you can do. But really, the stance transition mix-up on this move is dead because you can just react to the stance transition. And what does Heihachi do if you can react to the stance transition when your fastest move is 17 frames? Nothing. The answer is nothing. You can't do anything afterwards when you go into the stance. Hwoarang, just briefly to clear up some confusion you may have about a specific scenario that can happen in the matchup. When Hwoarang did this move, he's left at +8, and for some reason, if you tried crouching, and Hwoarang did forward 4, it would connect as if it was a mid, and you were crouching. That's been fixed. So if you haven't been confused about that, when he does this, yes, you can crouch under the forward 4 now. I think we all know about this one, but this move has homing property removed, so you're more free to sidestep, especially when Kazuya's in heat, because now he can't just throw this out for free and then, you know, like wall spot you and kill you. All right, Bear's sidestep 1+2 into hunting. This move has been nerfed quite heavily. It has not been nerfed on hit. It is still absurd on hit. But this was straight up just one of the best moves in the game in Season 2. I would say it was top 5 for sure. I don't know why I'm having trouble with this. You can see how on normal hit, this gives 46 damage guaranteed. The 2-1 here is guaranteed. The problem with this move more so was on block. Because on block, this move would be, I'm just trying to make sure I get my facts straight here, +6 on block going into hunting stance. And that meant with the 1 being a 12-frame move, you could not power crush through this. And that meant that on block here, Bears get a mix-up just here with the chip damage off of that move being +3, and then Bears are able to do their bear things. So that was a big problem. And then, of course, if you did a power crush here, then Bears could just hit confirm that and then continue on. If you're a better bear player than I am, and God, I hope to never be a bear player that's considered good, that was something that they could do. And now that's been changed, so now you can, again, just like most characters in the game, after this sidestep 1+2 here on block, you can power crush through every mid option that the bear has. So that's fantastic. So that just means that in this scenario now, if the bear goes into hunting stance, as long as you have a mid power crush is going to be a great option. Of course, if you have a high power crush, then bear can just wait and then boop and then launch you. So if you have a high power crush, it's still going to be a tough mix-up situation. It's not really changed in many ways, but you do have Power Crush available. Oh yeah, and this also means now if you try down jabbing him or something, then the down forward 1+2 here, it won't just win, it'll trade because it's 16 frames. So you have a couple more options here. Down jab is a little bit better, although it still loses to the 1, of course. So it doesn't come without risk. Power Crush is really good. If you have a high Power Crush, then good luck to you. But yeah, you're able to actually, you know, defend against this now as opposed to before where you couldn't. Oh yeah, and one more change too. Hunting down forward 1 is now -7 instead of -2. So you can just kind of do whatever you want to bears afterwards without being at risk of getting G-Clef Cannon. So great. One more thing with Panda as well, the bear OP has been nerfed, or the bear moon. I don't know. I'm just, it is definitely a name for this move. But the recovery time on this has... Sorry. Try that again. The recovery time on this has been increased by 4 frames. So you can see this move is a bit ridiculous because it's like how it was in Tekken 3. This is a completely unbreakable. It is an unbreakable throw that Panda got in Season 2. A couple of problems with it were just the recovery was apparently made it really hard to whiff punish, and it had some tracking on it that made it hard to sidestep. Now you can very easily sidestep this, and it has more recovery, so it's easier to launch punish, so just something to keep in mind there. All right, Lars, down forward 3-3, has less pushback, so it's easier to punish anything that he does. Silent entry 1+2 now is -14 instead of -13. Big whoop. What we're here for is heat dynamic entry 1+2. So I made a big point about Lars in the anti-season 2 guide about sidestep left duck, being able to option select him. This included when he was in heat and did dynamic entry 3+4, this move, because when he went into silent entry, he was only -1, which means that you had to do this option select in order to be able to avoid the subsequent mix-up. Now they've changed it, so in heat, if you do end up blocking this, he cannot transition in the stance. He also can't transition in the stance on whiff, which means that this move is just going to be a straight -14 as long as you get the block. It's so make sure you punish it like you were before. And yeah, why wasn't this the case from the beginning? All right, Leo, first thing, thank the gods, back 1-4 is steppable again. So I don't know if this was a bug or whatever, because it wasn't really in the patch notes, but you can sidestep this again. It's gonna take a long time for my muscle memory to get back. I had to unlearn sidestepping this move, so I didn't get quit by it. But you can sidestep and launch Leo again, so this isn't free anymore. Thank God for that. You want to know what else isn't free anymore? While running 3, oh, Leo nerfs are so good. This is +6 now. So again, if you watched my anti-season 2 guide on Leo, the problem with this move is that you couldn't really stop this mix-up afterwards because Power Crush was beaten by the 1-2 here, which is a normal hit mid launcher. So if you tried doing Power Crush or you tried ducking for the low, then Leo would be able to screw you. Now, granted, this is -14, but it meant that Power Crush was no longer a really viable option because of the risk reward to be able to stop 2, which essentially made the 2 launcher safe. And it also meant that you had to guess between that and the down 3+4, while in stance that was -12 on block and left Leo plus enough on hit that Leo could do a frame trap with while rising 3 and then confirm this entire string, and out the wall, that's the wall splat and does an absurd amount of damage. Now that entire dynamic is gone because this is only +6, meaning that you can Power Crush through the 1 here. So of course Leo doesn't have to go in the stance here and it's still +6, so they have options to be able to beat Power Crush from here. That in some ways is actually going to be better than what they can do from the stance, but like this for example. But Power Crush is a much more viable option now, especially if you see Leo going into the stance, so you know Leo is going to go into the stance. Now all of a sudden, Power Crush is an option that's going to be all of the mids that Leo can do from the stance. It's going to be all of the highs. The only thing that it's going to lose to is if Leo either blocks it or does the low here from stance. And that means now that Leo throwing out this isn't just safe for him to do anymore. Leo's going to potentially get punished as long as you're using your Power Crush, and that means they have to play around the Power Crush like we've been talking about throughout this video. And you may have also noticed that this is also changed. This is now only +2 on hit instead of +4, which means Leo loses access to the frame trap while rising 3. You can jab Leo out of it. Of course, if you do a down forward 1 or something, then Leo's still going to be able to do this and hit confirm it. So don't consider yourself completely saved from this situation yet. But if you are trying to jab check Leo, down jab check Leo after they do this low, then you can take your turn back, and that's of course the reward for jab checking Leo. So Overall, really good changes to making this offense less one-sided. Now, what Leo can do here, just to be fully clear, is that they can do the Wild Rising 4, and it's safe, 11 frames, take back the turn, and then continue from there. So it's not like Leo doesn't have options to be able to beat down jab, but now you have more options both after the Wild Running 3's blocked into the stance and after the 3+4 actually hits. Oh, did I also mention it's -13 now instead of -12? Yeah, Leo got hit hard, and it's for the better. All right, Leroy's sidestep 3+4 has been nerfed from +5 to +3. This realistically does nothing about the interaction. The only thing it changes is now 4 can't beat Power Crush, but that doesn't really matter. Because if you're going to be beating Power Crush with Leroy, you're doing something like back 3. You can still grab because he's +3, and that also means even if you try jabbing Leroy, this is going to be counter hit grab. You, of course, can't down jab Leroy because Hermit Stance is a thing that exists. Leroy also has access to Orbital while in stance to be able to beat down jab if he likes to. Leroy has access to his parries. Leroy has access to Heat Smash. Sorry, I should actually do that in stance to demonstrate that you can do it in stance. But Leroy also has access to Heat Smash while in stance. That will be anything except the jab. It trades with jab because of the frames. And basically everything I talked about in the anti-season 2 guide still applies here. The only difference is that the 4 now will just straight up lose to Power Crush, whereas before it actually beat Power Crush as if this wasn't powerful enough. But this is still, in my opinion, the best move in the game. Just bar none. This move is broken. It's ridiculous. It stands out from every other move and stance transition in the game. There's no real counterplay to it. The moves that Leroy has out here, the mix-ups that he has out here are relatively safe, unbeatable, hit confirmable. A plethora of options. Not much you can do as the defender. Anything that you do is very high risk because Leroy has relatively low risk options that give him high reward, like launchers, heat engagers, that only -2 on block, on top of now having his new back 1+2 being safe in heat. So a sequence that you can do is something like that, and that's all putting you at risk of getting counter hit launched. It's just, oh boy, it's more than I can talk about right now. So if you want to understand how this dynamic works a little bit more, check out my anti-season 2 part 2 video where we talk about Leroy and about this whole dynamic. But if any Leroy player is trying to tell you that this move is bad, all right, Paul, really short and simple. I'm not going to talk about too much. The deep dive down forward 4, this one went from +6 to +3, which means that Paul can't just like do this and throw out down forward 2 or, you know, something like that. If he does something slow like that, then you can jab him out of it. He's still plus enough though that he can do something like this and it'll trade. So you're still in the mix-up situation. There's just not as much he can do off of it. All right, Raven. I know that the Raven players have been telling me how much they hate this change, and I laugh at all of you. This is a needed and good change. I'm just gonna be frank with you. This move was stupid and way overtuned. Course circle forward 1+2 is now +2 instead of +5. This means that you can jab or down jab Raven out of the Wild Rising 2 mix-up here. This is a safe 13 frame Wild Rising counter hit launcher that Raven could also mix up with, of course, something like his from crouch down forward 3, or if I could actually do the move, his from crouch down forward 3+4, which put him in stance into a mix-up situation where he could use the now buffed 4 or the now buffed 3 there. That puts you into a back turn mix-up situation where Raven is effectively plus on block. This was dumb. This was just dumb. If you tried jab checking Raven out of this, then this would just launch you, and it's stupid, and it should have been hit. It never should have been like this in the first place. And frankly, all I'm going to say is, Raven players, what would you rather have? Would you rather have it be like this, or would you rather have the Wild Rising 2 be -10 on block? Because trust me, one of these things had to give. This move was way too good. It was way too overtuned. It was way too good in neutral. And if you're going to try telling me otherwise, then seek help. But yeah, you can, if Raven is just doing this now, and continuously trying to force this mix-up, you can just down jab him and get rid of the pressure entirely. Just be careful if you're doing anything except down jab, because this will still counter hit launch. And again, it's just adding to more interaction between the attacker and the defender. I don't know why Tekken players are so adverse and so upset if you play a character now where you actually have to interact with the person that's defending, but it's healthy for the game, so shut the fuck up! Sorry, that came right from my soul. Oh my god. Speaking of interaction, Shaheen, the character that doesn't interact with you at all, sidestep 1+2 is now +5 to +3, and this just means that he can't do this anymore. He can get jab checked out of it, or he can't do, like, not that one, this one anymore, or he can get jab checked out of it. Who cares? And last but not least, 5 Fox Fury! 5 Fox Fury! It's been nerfed. It's been nerfed, and thank God for that. Thank Christ for them nerfing 5 Fox Fury. I'm sure that VDX is happy. He's not like Raven players or Azucena players or Leroy players where they're upset at the fact that the move is actually in a healthier, not healthy, healthier spot, and they actually have to interact with the opponent instead of playing solitaire. No. Steve players, you're better than that, and I respect you all for that. Every single Steve player I've talked to wants him to get nerfed. They hate this. I haven't heard a single Steve player say, no, he didn't deserve it. Like, Heihachi players, no, you can sidestep it. Why did they nerf Steve? Like, oh, Heihachi is while running 1+2 is a high. Why did they nerf it? Why can you just down jab it now? Where I don't want to interact with my opponent. Where I just want to play a single player game. Wham, but I also want every other character in the game to get nerfed so I don't have to deal with 50-50s, but I can 50-50 my opponent more. Where, you know what? Harada was right. You understand? They was right about everyone and everything in this game except for Steve players. And I respect all of you for it. Oh, I've been needing to get that off my chest. I still do, but it's good enough for now. Anyway, sorry. I'm doing all this bit because I'm sure I don't need to really explain to you what's changed with Steve. But 5 Fox Fury has gone from +4 to -4 on block, and going into Flicker. The main thing was Flicker, because when he went into Flicker here, he was before +11 on block. And this meant that if you did anything here afterwards, Steve could just do the 1 and be able to stop you from doing that, and counter hit you, of course. So something like that. And then if you try down jabbing, because Steve was so plus, he could do something like, if I could actually do it, he could do something like that and then hit you out of the down jab. So it was just the risk for you defending and trying to do down jab to stop Steve from doing this was exceedingly high, and the reward was very little. And of course, Steve is just able to continuously loop this offense. Now he can't do that anymore. Since he's only +3 on block, down jab beats everything that Steve can really do in Flicker. Power Crush is going to beat pretty much everything that Steve can do in Flicker. Now, that said, he's still only -4 on block if he doesn't go in the stance, and he can, of course, cancel the stance. So if you try doing those things, he can low parry your down jab, he can block your Power Crush, he can do a whole manner of things. But basically, those generic kind of things we've been talking about throughout this video, where you can kind of down jab him out of stuff, Power Crush, those are all viable options now that you can do against Steve when he does 5 Fox Fury. So that's kind of what we were looking for. And then there is, of course, the other move that they've changed. No, it's not Lionheart. Actually, Lionheart they think is completely fine. No, instead it's 1-2-2. This now on hit has been buffed. This has been buffed on hit. Steve got a buff. I hate this stupid ass game. I'll quit. I quit this garbage game. When's Virtua Fighter 6 releasing? Just give me Virtua Fighter 6 already. Jesus Christ, I hate this game. Harada! Just fix the the goddamn game! Fix it! Anyway, that's going to do it for the anti-season 2.01 update guide. I hope this helped you. I hope you liked this video, and I will continue to do anti-guides every time a patch comes out. A lot of you guys, since the last two videos, have asked me for more anti-character guides and stuff. I've tried recording anti-character guides before, and they just don't really work with me or my style. I have a really bad time being able to encompass and explain the matchup for like an entire character, just because there's so much nuance that goes into it and so many things that I think are important to talk about, but then things that can be character specific and on and on and on. It's not something that really works for me, talking about a character in their entirety and how to play against them. But I think videos like this are informative and helpful, and no one else is really doing them. So for every patch that has significant changes like this, I'm going to continue doing these videos. So please look out for that. But that's going to do it from me for this one. Again, I hope this video helped you out, and if it did, if you could please leave a like, I would appreciate that a lot. It helps get this video out to more people. It helps continue in the algorithm. And you know, let me know what changes you might want to see going into the next patch. We of course have the patch coming up in June, and there are a lot of things that still obviously need touched up upon, like what we just showed at the end here with Steve. So if you want to let me know what you want to see, be more than happy to read your thoughts. And then I guess to end this video off, I'll just give my final closing overall thoughts about this patch. I think it was really good. I think it's clear that they have a solid idea on how the game needs to be going forward. The general balancing and ideas that they've shown in this patch are very consistent with what we saw in the last patch. I think a lot of people don't see that or understand really what got touched in this patch, and people feel like it's random. They feel like moves are just getting targeted that were being called out by the community or whatever, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The moves that were touched upon in this update were moves that explicitly stood out from the balancing of the last patch, and just with season 2 in general. The last patch touched upon the more offensive moves, the moves that really stood out as being completely busted, like Jack's clap, of course. But then there were still moves that, but then generally speaking, every single new stance transition, even when season 2 came out, had some sort of counterplay to it. Lydia's core circle forward 1+2/2 hold, for example, you can power crush through all of the mids. Elisa's new DES forward 1+2 or down 2 when she goes into dual boot. Depending on your character, you can sidestep right every single option she does out of dual boot, including the new forward 1+2 move that a lot of people think is homing for some reason. And there were some moves that just weren't like that. There were some moves in some stance transitions, like Heihachi's while running 1+2, Azucena's running 3-2, that very clearly stood out as being an order of magnitude stronger than these other moves. And so between the last patch and when they're changing the heat engager frame dash, so it's +17 to +9 and stuff like that, so you're not put in as many 50-50 situations, and there's more counterplay with things like power crush. That has just been pushed more in this last update, and it means that there's more interaction between the two players. There's less force stance 50-50s, and in fact I would even argue now that on block there's almost no real force stance 50-50s, that you just have no options to be able to deal with anymore. Generally speaking, across characters, the defender is going to have an option that beats most of the aggressor's options. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the risk reward is always skewed in the defender's favor, like with June, for example, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I think this last patch has finally fixed all of the moves that were problems in this regard and has normalized the strength of the characters, so no one's really standing out in this regard, and the game overall is just much healthier and much better to play. Except for Leroy and Steve still. But it's pretty damn close, and it wouldn't be a Tekken game if there wasn't some imbalance. So big shout out and thank you to our channel members too for helping out to allow me to keep doing this. Big thank you to Lisetto, Debauch, Prism, and Alien Tapion for your memberships. Appreciate you guys a lot, and I hope all of you watching have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye!